Good morning. Welcome to the latest episode of First World in Sport. Hooliganism looks like it's back, James. On the pitch, off the pitch. A pretty ugly weekend for football, all said and done.
It was, Luke. With Rangers Celtic yesterday and the game overnight in Brazil, yeah. I didn't see any of it at Sutton United 0, Morecambe 5 on Saturday afternoon, which was the first live game I've seen in a long time. Had the chance to go and watch some live football in the conference here, and it was 4-0 after 25 minutes, red card, and home team's 4-0 down. So yeah, fun and games. But most people stayed, so yeah, fair play to the Sutton fans for staying. Or 2,200 of them.
Sounds fairly painful.
Always good to watch live sport.
So where do we begin with this shambles that we've seen over the weekend? I guess the most obvious starting point is at Ibrox. So to put a bit of context on it, the away fans have been banned from both these clubs for a little period of time now. And they were given another opportunity yesterday to visit the other team's stadium, and the game finished 0-0 in normal time, 0-0 after extra time. Celtic ended up winning 4-2 on penalties. The Celtic players were celebrating, and it all kicked off. Got ugly, very ugly, really.
Disgraceful scenes, to be honest, from both sets of fans. And the police did well, actually, in the end, to calm that down, because that could have been very nasty very quickly. And I don't know which person, the Scottish FA or Scottish Police Force, thought that giving Celtic 7,500 tickets to go to Ibrox in a game kicking off at 1 o'clock in the afternoon was a good idea. Just never going to work. These two clubs hate each other. We know why. It's religion up there in Scotland. One's Catholic, one's Protestant, and that's what it is. And unfortunately, those people inside the stadium yesterday ruined it for everyone else, because I can't see any sort of fans, away fans, being able to go to Ibrox or Celtic Park in the near future. It was pretty shambles. Lucky there wasn't any more really bad incidents going on. A few police officers have been hurt, a few fans have been hurt, but lucky it wasn't even worse. So not a good look for Scottish football at all.
I think what was amazing when you watched the pictures was just clearly how premeditated potential trouble was, in terms of obviously a lot of Rangers fans with the masks, and so they wouldn't be identified. It just seemed to be, I mean, maybe that was for after the game, if they were running battles outside, I don't know, but it's not a good look. I think the only thing I would sort of comment on it is, I don't know why the Celtic players thought it would be a good idea to spend as long on the pitch as they did. I think you're just asking for trouble. They should have been off down that tunnel ASAP. And, if you goad fans a little bit, I think you're asking for trouble. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just, and all it takes is one or two to then get onto the pitch, and then it was just horrible to watch.
Tough in the moment, though, isn't it? When you've just beaten your rivals on penalties at that end as well. When you've scored the winning penalty in front of the Rangers fans as well, not to go and celebrate.
I know,
with your
but
own fans.
I mean, you've got to be a little
It
bit.
is. It's probably.
That's on the Celtic. That's on some of the Celtic management and staff. To
Yes, I
say,
was just about to say, yeah.
guys, let's get out of here, and so they can actually enjoy that game. Because we have been to Celtic Park together, haven't we? As we were on Champions League night. Saw Barcelona, Messi and co. And Celtic Park, it's a pretty incredible place to go and visit, and I would certainly recommend visiting it for a European night, or I can't even begin to imagine what either Ibrox or Celtic Park must be like in these derbies.
Be quite good fun if it wasn't like back in the day, yeah. So yeah, not a good look for Scottish football at all. It really wasn't.
And then overnight we had Brazil, where you had Cruzeiro and Mineiro were playing a cup final. It was 1-0, very late in the game. I think almost late into injury time. It was a pretty tame shot. the keeper saved it, and the players followed in and smashed the keeper. All hell has broken loose. Fighting. I can't really remember too many times seeing as much fighting on a pitch as that.
Can't, yeah. I mean, 23 players got red carded, by the way, in that game.
But that was obviously after the game. So
After the game,
I
yeah.
think they've gone back and looked at video and said 23 of you have been involved. Hulk
But
was
some,
in
it's,
there.
yeah, exactly. It's not just like pushing and shoving. There was punches, there's proper kicking. It's back in the day that the only time I can really remember it is when Maradona got kicked, hacked, playing for Barcelona, and I think it was Atletico Madrid who came along. Not quite sure. He came along and literally was just complete rioting on the pitch. But yeah, I mean, some of the images afterwards of players having black eyes overnight and things like that, it looks absolutely horrific. It's just what's going on in these players' heads that think it's acceptable on a football field to go around punching, kicking people at will. It's ridiculous. There needs to be long bans. We're not talking 5 matches. It needs to be 6-month bans. And you do it again, it's a 2-year ban, like a drug ban. You can't continue to.
Well, the
not a
problem
good
is,
look at all.
no, but the problem is, it's not one or two players. It's like the whole team.
So just do it.
Cruzeiro aren't going to be able to put a team out for their title defence next year.
I know. And another point I saw as well on another thing. Have a look at Samuel Lino from last night and his play acting and trying to get a player sent off. Gets the ball, passes it, runs past the defender. The defender puts his arm out, it doesn't touch him, and he waits 2 to 3 seconds and then falls over, feigning a head injury, rolling around like a little child in a playground. It's just disgraceful scenes. We've talked about it before. Retrospective punishment of players who are cheating, blatant cheating, needs to be brought in. And it should be a 3-match ban minimum for these players. And they won't do it again because when you miss 3 games for retrospective banning, it needs to be brought in because at the moment, the cheating that's going on is ruining the sport.
So, I mean, just going back to, I mean, obviously, completely agree with that. Something we've talked on many times. It's highly, highly irritating that they're unwilling to clamp down on it. It feels like such an easy thing you could get so many benefits from as well. But let's touch on derbies because I think it's a really interesting sort of subject. And obviously that Rangers Celtic derby is, because of the religious connotations, it is streets ahead, I think, of any of the other derbies in terms of just the ferocity and hatred between the fans.
It is. I was thinking about that overnight and what to say kind of thing. So you've obviously got, well, in London you've got a load of teams, but the biggest one is probably West Ham Millwall as a potential derby. But they haven't played each other for a long, long time. And now they might not even play each other again because of the situation in the Premier League and the Championship. They might cross over again. So
they could both be in the Premier League next year, James.
I mean, you might have to kick the game off at 10 o'clock in the morning or have no fans. But I think it's 2009 they haven't played each other. You've then got, obviously, Liverpool and Everton, that's fine. They're talking Newcastle, Sunderland, that's not really, that's just a city kind of thing. It's not really. The big ones are in the West Midlands. It's like those 4 clubs in the West Midlands, Wolves, West Brom, Aston Villa and Birmingham are the ones which can be, and Cardiff, Swansea.
I do find it quite fascinating that, if you were to ask the normal people in the street, what's the biggest derbies? And, they'd be like, Arsenal, Tottenham. And like you ask a Tottenham fan and they almost regard the Chelsea match as important as the Arsenal game. In the same way that the United fans regard Liverpool as a bigger match as against City. Some of these games just aren't that important. Whereas what I would say is there's a real nastiness, an edge to both Villa Birmingham and Wolves West Brom. Like a real nastiness that I don't think people quite appreciate, just the sort of levels of hatred there.
It is, and it's, I mean, it's not good at all, some of these things that is going on in recent days. And we don't hear about it a lot, what's going on outside the grounds either. You don't see or hear unless you're at the ground. You have no idea what's going on. So yeah, hopefully it's just a one-off, but not been a good look for football at all. And on that point of when these games are played, which individuals have decided that Liverpool Fulham should be played on Grand National Day? So Grand National horse racing is 4 o'clock on Saturday the 7th of April, I believe, something along those lines. And Liverpool playing Fulham on the same day at 5:30 at home. Mental. And then they've decided to put Manchester United versus Leeds United on a Monday night at 8 o'clock. I mean, what are you doing, lads? You're asking for trouble. Those games, Man United versus Leeds, you always need to be like 11:30 kickoffs on a Sunday morning kind of thing. Back in the day, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And suddenly now it's okay for an 8 o'clock game. It's like...
It's just not very sensible. I mean, you can have... It's not like they're in Europe either or anything like that. You can easily have that game Saturday lunchtime, keep it sensible. You know, it is just nuts.
Just, yeah. I don't have any faith in the authorities making right decisions, though. That's the problem.
Okay, let's touch on the FA Cup. I'm not gonna lie. I saw some of the Wolves game. I saw some of the Newcastle game. Didn't see much on Saturday. One of my eldest had a birthday this weekend, so there was lots of stuff related to that. So I just don't enjoy the FA Cup, weirdly, particularly when Villa aren't in it. I'm not going to say I don't care, but I don't care, honestly. It's, apart from a work perspective. But, obviously Liverpool had a very comfortable win against Wolves on Friday evening. I mean, there's a lot of similarities with that first game, actually, apart from the fact that you took your chances a little bit more. In terms of Wolves offered almost nothing in the early parts of that game.
I must admit, I didn't have that on the main screen when I was watching. I was watching the rugby. The first half was very similar. Sideways passing. Both teams, Liverpool made 4 changes. Wolves made 6. But Liverpool were just poor again. And then Robertson scored his worldie. Scored a game. Salah scored a game. A minute and a half later and game over. Yeah. Liverpool just 3-1. I mean, as a similar review, it's not going to change my view on Slot or certain players. One thing coming out of Liverpool is that Ryan Gravenberch signed a new 6-year contract.
I'm not going to lie, James. I took great enjoyment in sending you the link to that when I saw the news, because I knew you'd love it.
Moving on.
No, let's dwell on no. So on Saturday, the lunchtime kickoff was Mansfield Arsenal. Arsenal ended up winning. Bit trickier than probably would have hoped, but I mean, look, not the. I mean, it's just a dream draw for Arsenal. You can play your reserve, and you still win relatively comfortably. What was interesting was no 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. I do find the scheduling of some of these things just a bit bizarre.
Well, they wanted to show all 8 games, didn't they? So, and you're not allowed to show any 3 o'clock games on a Saturday. So that might be the reason why. But going back to Arsenal, Eze's a great finish, by the way. But they picked up another couple of injuries, kind of thing.
Trossard
and Calafiore. So yeah, whether they're fit for midweek Champions League game against Leverkusen, they got a big enough squad anyway. But yeah, they'll probably draw Port Vale tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. They've already played Port Vale, didn't they, in the Carabao Cup?
Yeah.
The evening game on Saturday was obviously Chelsea Wrexham. Wrexham gave Chelsea an almighty scare. Chelsea had to equalise pretty late in the game through the young lad to tie it back to 2-2, and then we obviously had the sending off, and then Garnacho scored, and then Chimpong, I'd completely forgotten his name, and then Garnacho scored, and then Wrexham had the goal disallowed, And then obviously Pedro with another nice finish actually at the end. By the way, he's in danger if he carries on finishing like this. Of he'd be out of Chelsea before he knows it. They'll have to sell him, raise some money.
Yeah, been playing well for a couple of months or 3 or 4 months now, Pedro. I just get wound up. I don't think it's a red card for the Wrexham lad either. I just think it's an in between a red and a yellow. Yeah, he's gone in with full force and things like that, but he doesn't actually really catch the lad at all. I think if they put it this way, if that's a Chelsea player doing that, I don't think they send him off. I really don't think there's a big club bias.
So I think that decision's one of those ones where you get caught between sort of two situations. One is the intent. The intent would merit a red card. The actual outcome was more like a yellow card. It wasn't, in the end, where he caught him and how he caught him. That's not a red card offence. And it's just where, it sits in terms of how we want the game to be sort of officiated. So, I mean, I always think back to, it was Pedro actually, when he was at Brighton. I don't know if you remember when he had that swinging elbow where his intent was to absolutely clean out that player. So he's just swung his elbow. He's missed the player, luckily for him. And he didn't get sent off. And so you end up with that disconnect where he wasn't, they weren't looking at his intentions there. They were looking at the outcome. The fact he didn't catch the player meant he didn't sort of get sent off. But the intention there was for something much uglier. And I think in many respects, you almost have to go on the basis of what actually happened rather than what may have been intended.
Yeah, I don't remember the incident, but I just think that incident on Saturday I just don't think it was a red card. It's probably an orange card or not a green card, but an in-between where it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the bin. I don't understand why there isn't a wider discussion about sin binnings in football when we see it in all other major sports.
Well, we certainly see enough fouls that merit something more than a yellow card.
Yeah,
but not necessarily a red card.
I saw it on Saturday in the game Sutton Morecambe to say Sutton Ford was chasing a Morecambe player back. He beat him and he just literally just hacked him down, kicked him on the Achilles at full pace, nasty little, snide little tackle. And there was a bit of a kerfuffle, obviously, because it's just poor form, really. And the referee's got it's not a red card, but it's middle of the pitch kind of thing. The referee's got no option, obviously, he books the player. But the Morecambe bench and things like that, and the players are getting a little bit annoyed. And obviously the game's over anyway, but that should be a sin binning. That should just be a clear 10, 15 minutes, go and have a sit down. But there's so many things in football change with certain things like the shot clock and penalties and corners. And if I'm having a rant, another big rant of mine watching live sport is this goal kick nonsense. So when the ball's in the goalkeeper's hands, the referee counts with his hands, goes 8 seconds down, whatever. And obviously, most goalkeepers wait until the last second to do it. But from a goal kick, from one side, why are they allowed to go and move it, walk across, go and pick it up, and move it all the way across the other side? Then take their time. Because at corners, you can't decide which side of the pitch you take a corner from. So why can you decide which part of the pitch or 6-yard box you can take a goal kick from? It doesn't make sense in my view. It's just clear wasting time. I don't know if you saw that thing on The Athletic the other day when how much time the ball's in play or how long it takes for teams to restart.
Arsenal getting precious. I've never seen so much data produced to say they're not boring and they're not time wasting.
The worst one was Newcastle, obviously. First couple of games of the season up at St James's Park against Liverpool. I know they were down to 10 men, but they were wasting nearly a minute on every single goal kick. Something's got to be done about it.
That's on the referees.
Yeah, but they don't do anything about it. That's why the shot clock has to be brought in. And it's a quick way of doing it. Easy way of doing it. But anyway.
Man City, really good win away at Newcastle. City obviously made an awful lot of changes there. I mean, it does amuse me a little bit when, obviously Marmoush scores a couple of times. Oh, City's £80 million striker scores a couple and assisted by their £60 million midfielder. who sat alongside their other £60 million midfielder, who sat alongside their other £60 million midfielder. Like, it's just the amount of money that they've spent putting together that squad, and and the plaudits they get. Oh, they've changed. They've made so many changes. It's like, come on, give it a rest.
1-1-5. All we need to remember.
So one thing about that game, so Newcastle were dominant in that first half an hour or so, and it was really interesting how City just managed to get a foothold in that game, and suddenly Newcastle never got it back, and City were dominant at the end of that first half. I don't know if you've seen the Savinho finish. It's one of the more bizarre goals I've ever seen. I still don't quite know what he was doing. Literally just stood there, let the ball hit him, and went in. But Newcastle looked tired, and I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. You've got the likes of Tonali, who have played so much football. They looked absolutely spent in that second half.
Yeah, it's like 46th or 47th game for Newcastle, and they've also got midweek Champions League against Barcelona as well. So yeah, they're...
And they had only 10 men against United in midweek. I mean, look, it's difficult. All these games are big for them, okay? But you can't, don't come crying saying, oh, we're tired, when you're not, actually using your full squad.
Yeah. It's just City. I'm just getting really annoyed and wound up with these 115 charges. Been 3 years, and they're just hiding behind the legal argument of it's in the process and nothing's happening about it. They win, and that the manager Guardiola again has the audacity to just go up to the referees during the game and after the game and act like a complete and utter spoilt brat, and get sent off or whatever like this. He's going to get a ban, 2-game ban. But he continuously does this, and it's just the authorities do nothing about it, really.
He's got too much ban, James.
Well, too much ban, it's absolutely irrelevant. You can still go to the stadium and be in the change room. The only way to deal with it...
Carabao Cup final.
Oh, wow. But you can still go in the change room and offer insights and thoughts and tactics like that. The only way to deal with it is just ban them from the stadium. But then he probably does what Mourinho did in the Champions League and get in via the physios or things like that in all the kit man thing. But it's back in the day. In the laundry basket, I think Mourinho got into change rooms when he got banned for a Champions League game back in the day, first spell at Chelsea. However, yeah, it's just anyway. Can't take Man City seriously when those charges are still around.
Newcastle season's in danger of unravelling very quickly.
Yeah. Barcelona should beat them, yeah.
Barcelona, lose to Barcelona, suddenly you look back on your season and you're, I don't know, what are they, 10th in the league or something like that?
Yeah, they're not finishing top 5, are they?
So all said and done, it won't have been a great season.
And they're going to struggle to keep a couple of their players, I think, as we discussed.
They're 12th in the league. So on Sunday, we actually saw some shocks. We had Fulham, Southampton. Southampton won 1-0. Very late penalty from Stewart. I mean, that's a very, very soft penalty. I mean, he's barely... I mean, it's like... So you obviously have that... It's that conversation that you see quite a lot about, oh, he touched him, but not every touch is a foul type of thing. And his reaction and how he reacted was clearly not reflective of the contact that was made. And again, we touched on cheating and stuff earlier, but if you have players, and a bit like Cunha when against Palace a couple of weeks ago, where he's made a real meal out of the pull from Lacroix, and until you actually penalise these players for just massive overreactions, they'll keep doing them because they can get penalties in decisive moments. But I do feel for Fulham in that penalty because I think it was Anderson hardly touched him.
Just not a penalty.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
suck it away nicely, but it's It's infuriating when, as you touched on it though, if I'm a manager, I'm telling my players to go down easily and things like that. Why not? Because we know these referees aren't good enough, and if you get the on-field decision, 95% of the time you're going to get the off-field decision on VAR if there is VAR. And I see they made 8 or 9 changes for them, didn't they? Something ridiculous like that.
I don't really understand it.
Yeah, don't get that at all. Right, they've got no
And
midweek games. They've got a chance to be in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. They get a home draw. If they did get a home draw, they'd fancy beating anyone really at home. I don't understand why they're resting players. I really don't.
I think it's one of the difficult parts from managers, and it's one thing we always say about when you make lots and lots of changes, is there tends to be they just don't gel. They're not used to playing with each other. These are players who aren't playing that much, just generally, so they're not all quite as sharp as they should be. And on paper, Fulham should easily have had a good enough team. But the reality is, Southampton wasted so many good chances in that game. They were miles the better team, and Fulham were dreadful. I mean, we do have to talk about the goal that wasn't. The goalkeeper's taken a quick goal kick, smashed against the Southampton player. Muniz has reacted quickest, put the ball in the net. One of my favourite referees, Jared Gillett, obviously blew up before the ball was in the goal, so play is effectively dead. What were your thoughts on it?
Technically, it's the right decision not to allow the goal because the ball was still moving from the goal kick. However, they got to that decision completely wrongly or incorrectly, kind of thing. He had no idea. He's only blown because the ball's hit. He doesn't realise. He's panicked, basically, the referee. He's not seen the goal kick, so he can't say the ball's carry on moving because the referee's not seen it. He's blown because it's hit the player in the chest stroke face. He's gone down. He's turned around, he's blown the whistle because the player's on the floor, not realising or didn't have a clue what's going on before the ball's gone in the net. So there's no way they're going to allow the goal. But he hasn't got to the decision in the right way.
Well, but I believe there's slow-mo pictures which suggest the ball had stopped when it was actually struck. But again, it comes back a little bit. If you remember Villa Man United last game of last season, where Rodgers took the ball off the keeper and the referee's blown up. Rodgers has obviously put it in the goal, and once he's blown up, the play is effectively dead. And these referees are not meant to be blowing so quickly in these situations. And as a referee, he annoys me intensely because Jared Gillett is terrible. I mean, terrible. So many games in recent weeks I've seen him, and he has been horrendous. He is just not close to being fit to refereeing at the biggest games.
And he's now probably lost his confidence because that's 3 or 4 games in a row where he's made 2 massive errors. Like, in the laws of the game, they can't allow the goal because the whistle's gone. So there's not really much Fulham can complain about as per se. What they can complain about is he never saw the incident, panicked, blew the whistle because he hadn't a clue what went on.
And look, I understand it, right? So if you think it through from his point of view, given the goal kick, obviously he should be retreating, facing the ball. Okay,
Yeah.
so sort of moving backwards. But he's just trying to get into position. There's obviously a lot of players around him as well, so he's having to navigate sort of traffic. So it's not simple, but you can't just be guessing, which is what he's clearly done.
He's got a history of it, as you said, in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Guessing, I think is the correct word to use. And they reward mediocrity because he keeps on getting games. High-profile games on TV, live. Well, they're all live on TV, but you know what I mean? The only one game that's going on at a time.
It's not a good day for Fulham, that one. Then we had Port Vale, Sunderland. Sunderland, cheerio. Port Vale win 1-0. And a goal from
Bottom of League One, aren't they? And they've had 2 massive results. They beat Bristol City on Tuesday night in their rearranged 4th round game. And then they beat Sunderland yesterday on a Podmar of a pitch, which was quite interesting. And the goal scorer did like this Shearer celebration against Sunderland, yeah. So it's a shocker for Sunderland, that is. It really is. That's a poor performance, poor result. Because again, they've got nothing else to... they're staying up, obviously. But they could have gone far if they got another home draw like Fulham. You never know who they could...
You wouldn't fancy going to Stadium of Light in the quarterfinals.
No, exactly. So missed opportunity there, massively for Sunderland. I'm not sure the fans who made the trip down there would have been too happy seeing that performance and that result.
Was Port Vale one team to actually keep a vague eye on because they have Joe Gauci in goal on loan from Villa. So it's just always intrigued to see how he gets on. Didn't disgrace himself, which is always good. So I think that's, and then we had Leeds beat Norwich comfortably. Not much to say on that. What I would say is Leeds do have I quite like the depth of squad that Leeds have. They don't have a huge drop off between the first team and the squad. You know, all the players like Longstaff and Tanaka and Pirro, and they're just lacking a little bit of top end quality.
Yeah, but again, they're going to be hard to beat if they get a home draw. They'll be hard to beat at Ellen Road. Quarter-final, first time since 2003, I believe. So 23 years. They'll fancy beating anyone at home or giving them a game. No problem.
Right, let's talk Championship.
Quickly, sorry, there's a game tonight, isn't there? The West Ham at home to Brentford in the last game of the FA Cup. West Ham. What sort of team West Ham put out tonight would be interesting to see.
I can't talk about this too much because my job is as a professional punter, and I think there is something in this game. I can't say too much at this point. I know it's not ideal, but I pretty strong views that something may happen tonight in this game, and what I can't be doing is affecting ability to try and get on. But I think something potentially very interesting may happen with regard to this game. So I will definitely, it's not certain, but it's a game I'll certainly be watching later with probably great interest.
So the draw is tonight, 7:05 on TNT and their TNT YouTube channel. So yeah, Arsenal, Port Vale, Man City, Southampton probably are the two games.
It does feel inevitable, doesn't it? It does feel like an Arsenal Port Vale. Arsenal at home against Port Vale. Okay, let's go Championship. So Coventry won 2-0. Millwall won 3-1. Middlesbrough won 4-0. So a lot of the title automatic challengers, should we call them, all had wins.
Yeah, and at the bottom table, Blackburn drew with Portsmouth. The only one is Ipswich drew 1-1 against relegation threatened Leicester City. Sheffield Wednesday lost again. So what's that? Still only one win so far in the season. Minus 7 points still. So yeah, and there's midweek games, isn't there? So you've got tomorrow you have Millwall Derby at West Brom home to Southampton, Birmingham QPR, Coventry at home to Preston on Wednesday night. So yeah, there's midweek fixtures in the Championship. So yeah, it's... So Millwall had a good win yesterday at Queen's Park Rangers. 4-0 at Queen's Park Rangers. That's an impressive win for them.
I did see one interesting stat that did make me smile. Was, I probably need to verify this, but I'm led to believe that that's 30 Championship games now that Leicester have had without a clean sheet.
30?
30. The first team in 18 years to hit that particular mark.
Not a good stat to have in your resume, is it, really, as a club? We could easily... I mean, if Oxford get their act together, they're right back in the mix and not going down. You could see two big teams getting relegated to League One this season. Well, three, because Sheffield Wednesday are obviously already down. But if you had Leicester, West Brom and Sheffield Wednesday getting relegated from the Championship, that would...
Well, I don't know where... I mean, I don't know where Leicester go if they were to get relegated, because they still have so many... it's one thing having sort of clauses in your contract saying if you get relegated, let's say like Tottenham, you may get a 50% pay cut. Something else I can't imagine too many of the big earners at Leicester have got something saying if you get relegated twice, you're going to be on 25% of your Premier League salary that you're on. Because, and even then, they've got some big earners that, some of these boys on massive money. And honestly, in League One, you just can't afford it. They're all going to have to go. They're going to have to sell the young superstars. It's just going to be so ugly. And you'll also see, it's very good and well getting 30,000 plus when you're in the Premier League and you're winning things and successful. I'd be intrigued to see how many fans Leicester get if they're in League One, struggling.
Not many, I'd imagine. In Serie A, you had, talking of derbies earlier on, you had the big derby at San Siro last night. AC Milan 1, Inter Milan 0. Pervis Estupiñán, the Brighton left back, scored after 35 minutes. So 1-0. So it's still Inter 6 points clear. It's the first time Inter have lost since that Milan. Milan have done a double over them this season. Both 1-0 games. One thing of that is, I was watching the last half an hour of that game last night. So Inter had the majority of the ball last half an hour. And ball comes in from a corner. AC Milan guy, defender, heads it away. Momentum's always Inter Milan. He holds his head, rolls around, stops the game for another minute and a half, 2 minutes. Referee's got no other option, obviously, than call the physios on. The ball then essentially goes back all the way back to the Inter Milan keeper. So AC Milan are all back in their system, things like this, and the momentum's completely gone to the game. And the referee just blows up after 96 minutes, after giving 6 minutes of injury time. And it's probably a minute and a half wasted. It just doesn't matter if they're going to score or not, really. The point is that the way that this head injury thing is just been abused by certain clubs, well, most clubs, let's be honest. And I know it's a very tricky situation with concussion. I'm a big believer in football's got a massive issue with concussion. However, I don't know what to do with it, but players are just faking injuries, and they've been told to fake injuries, obviously. But something's got to be done about it, because it's easily done now. They just go down and the referee's got to stop it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we had a chat about this. I don't really know what you can do to solve it. Apart from have a shot clock that's managed properly. I know it's killing momentum in the game and things like that, but it's just a very difficult area to sort of navigate, I think.
It is. It's just something needs to be done about it. Shot clock would instantly stop it, but then momentum, you can't, because there's no drop ball anymore. You just get the ball back, isn't there? So back in the day, you had a drop ball. One
thing I did see O'Reilly for City. He collided with the keeper on Saturday evening and sort of got up, sort of trying to just shake it off type of thing, and it was like nothing more. It was as if there's no big issue, and sometimes they do need to step in and just check that he was actually all right, because he was down initially, but he sort of carried on and was fine. But it was just, I don't know. I mean, I guess most of the time it'll be fine, and then it's just that on those other odd occasions where you end up having all the issues. But it shouldn't be for him to be able to say, "Oh, I'm fine to carry on" without being checked.
Yeah, the big thing from rugby is they brought an independent doctor in to do the HIAs, head injury assessments, because you can't have a club doctor doing them, because if they're the big player, I know they've got professional things to do, and I understand that, especially the medical profession. However, we know and you know that certain things might be said, oh yeah, he's okay, or they're not doing a proper test at all. You can't do a proper test on the pitch. It's just not. So why didn't you just allow them to go off the pitch for 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, bring a sub replacement on, and if he's back and passes the test, then they can come back on. Go back to it. Football is light years behind on concussion. But anyway. In France, died as quickly in France. PSG lost on Friday night, home to Monaco 3-1. Lens beat Metz 3-0, so it's still PSG leading with 57, Lens 56, Marseille are third now, 46. 11 games left there. Bundesliga, only really one game Friday night was Munich beat 1-4-1, sorry, without Harry Kane, Diaz and Nicholas Jackson on the score sheet. In La Liga, on Friday night again, Madrid played Celta Vigo away 1-2-1 with a Fede Valverde 94th minute massive deflection winner. They were heading for a draw there in Vigo, Madrid, but that's a big result for them. And then Barcelona beat Atletico Club Bilbao yesterday. Lamine Yamal was a brilliant goal on the 68th minute for a 1-0 away victory there. So Barca's got 67, Madrid have 63 points, so 4 clear Barcelona, but Madrid look very ordinary under Arbeloa. Strange appointment that really was. I know, obviously got no Mbappe. It's been a bit quiet in the last couple of days about him and his knee injury. Obviously Rodrigo's got an ACL, but that Real Madrid team looks what we know it is, a bunch of individuals with little or no tactics, and I think City will tear them apart. Even though I don't think City are great, I just think the managerial level of Guardiola to Arbeloa is just chalk and cheese.
So one story I did see, really sad news, was that a young girl, 15 years old, called Amelia Applin, who was an Oxford United academy player, she died over the weekend. And what it does, it just puts into just perspective, of when we see these players moaning and, just life in general is, I've got daughters who play football every weekend, spent time this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, watching kids football, and it's just, honestly, it's inconceivable. And anyway, just thoughts to her family and all her loved ones. And I think sometimes just that people have to look at the bigger picture and, life in general. It's very easy to get upset about things that really don't matter. Obviously this week we have Champions League fixtures. On Tuesday evening we have Galatasaray Liverpool, Newcastle Barcelona and Atletico Madrid Tottenham. And then on Wednesday we have Leverkusen Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain Chelsea, Real Madrid Manchester City. So first up, James, Galatasaray Liverpool.
Yeah, repeat. Obviously, we've played each other. Obviously, in the group stage, Liverpool lost 1-0. Penalty, so Bosley put his arm out. Player fell down like a sack of potatoes. European penalty, wouldn't be a penalty in the Premier League. Liverpool were going through that stage where they couldn't do anything. Haven't improved much anyway, but they're going through that stage where they had no idea what was going on. Obviously, looks like Wirtz has probably paid a bit on Friday night. Ryan Gamera won't start. I can't imagine. There's no way that Slot's going to drop his first son, Gakpo, or his second son, Gravenberch. It shouldn't be a tough place to go, let's be honest. I know they're top of Turkish Super League and they won at the weekend, but there's levels in this sport, but you just don't I don't have any confidence in how Liverpool playing. Although the Champions League does suit Liverpool a bit more because of less pressing, it's less physical. So the likes of Gravenberch and McAllister. It was interesting to see that they played Szoboszlai right back on Friday night and not Jones. Will he go back to that, or they play Frimpong at right back? I'd be disappointed if Liverpool don't play or don't win the game anyway. And left back, I don't know, if you're playing, I'd like to see them playing Wirtz off the left and not playing Gakpo off the left and play Kerkez. It was interesting to see that Robertson played left back on the weekend or Friday night, and he looked really good because he hasn't played for a while, and he helped N'Gamara a lot. So you wouldn't want to see Kerkez and N'Gamara play together because they're just two young kids that, don't know what, just started their careers really. So yeah, 5:45 that game, so it's quite handy that game tomorrow night. But yeah, it's.
I do think there is levels to it, as you say, and I think in terms of Galatasaray, you only have to look at the fact they're 4 points clear of Fenerbahce, and if you look at how poor Fenerbahce were against Forest, it makes you makes you wonder just how good that Turkish league is, particularly when I think Fenerbahce haven't lost a game in the league all season. Galatasaray have lost a couple, but that's not a great league.
No, and also you're watching. I know they beat Juventus, but Juventus had 10 men in both games. Obviously, that ridiculous red card for Lloyd Kelly as well, and
And
they looked
Juve
awful.
could have won that.
Exactly, kind of should have won it, even with 10 men. So Liverpool really should be confident going into that game. But this is Arne Slot's Liverpool this season, so haven't played well for a long time.
Newcastle, Barcelona. Again, we had this fixture. We had this fixture earlier in the season in the group stages. Barcelona came out on top. I'm intrigued because this Barcelona high line, it does feel like Newcastle could have quite a bit of success behind. They're quite good, Newcastle, at hitting teams. In those situations with Gordon, Elanga, and pace.
Just whether Newcastle can get the ball, really. So, and I don't rate the Barcelona keeper Juan Garcia at all. I don't think he's top level in any stretch of the imagination. That'll be Newcastle's game plan, won't it? Trying to sit back and deny space for Rashford and all that lot, and Lamine Yamal, hopefully, because he didn't play in the group stages up at St James's Park. So at least the Geordies will see a genuine superstar play, and he's in great form, obviously. Good goal at the weekend and his first career hat-trick 10 days ago. So that'll be a fun game to watch. Really will be.
I think the worry for Newcastle would be is they look exhausted. I mean, they've had so many big games recently, and what you don't really want to be doing is... So they have a slightly tricky situation that they don't really want to be... Will they have the energy to press Barcelona relentlessly in that first sort of half an hour? It feels unlikely. They don't want to expend too much energy just chasing shadows.
And just looking at who Newcastle, and then Newcastle away, I'll see at Chelsea on Saturday afternoon as well, 5:30.
And then they've got Barcelona away. Good luck, boys.
Yeah, at least they're playing Tuesday, Wednesday, not Wednesday, Tuesday, if you get what I mean. But yeah, that'd be a fun game to watch. It always reminds me of I think it's Tino Asprilla hat-trick, wasn't it, back in the late 90s when he scored that hat-trick and they beat him in the Champions League. Always good to remember those games, yeah.
And then the other one tomorrow night is Atletico Madrid against, should we call them the hapless Tottenham Hotspur? I can't imagine Tottenham getting much out of this game. I think one of the problems with Europe this year, not problems, but certainly from a betting perspective, is it's easy to forget just how good the Premier League teams are relative to other countries. And whether that be Turkey and Galatasaray, some of these German teams are terrible. The French teams haven't been brilliant. I mean, Atletico Madrid have been very inconsistent this season. But there's just, as you touched on earlier, sort of different levels to this, and I just struggle to believe that Tottenham will get anything out of that game.
Atletico Madrid are decent at home, they're terrible away from home. And yeah, Tottenham are a mess. I still can't. I saw the report actually on Friday after we did the pod that there's a lot of murmurings over and that on Friday especially, that Tudor was under pressure, big time under pressure, and he somehow survived the weekend. But if they have another shocking result tomorrow night, say it's 3-4, 5-0, what are they going to do? Because they're obviously out on that. Do they make a decision to say thanks very much?
I mean, part of the problem is results. Obviously, there's time in the season where results obviously matter. Okay, and you often say, "Oh, it's not about performance, just getting results." But the performances are an indicator that something more positive or negative is sort of around the corner. And the worry for Spurs is that he's come in and nothing obviously has changed in terms of getting a reaction out of the players. He hasn't stumbled across a formation that makes them more or harder to beat. He hasn't stumbled upon a formation that sees him creating more chances or bringing the best out of one or two players. There's just been nothing there at the moment. And if they have another poor performance, I mean, I don't expect them in terms of getting a result, say, on Tuesday night. But if it's another poor performance, you look at it and go, well, where are they going? Apart from the Championship, because other teams suddenly, West Ham are playing pretty well. Forest, they're not playing great, but I feel like they have more upside than say Tottenham do at the moment. I keep hearing people talk about, oh, Tottenham are going to get this player back, this player back, this player back. Right, there's a very, very simple rule, is if a player's been out for more than about, I normally say 8 weeks, 10 weeks with an injury, you can almost write him off for the rest of the season. He isn't going to come back in with no pre-season, effectively, and have weeks and weeks to build up to the pace of play to come in and influence what's going to happen.
Yeah, especially at this stage of the season when we know what it's like. The thing with Tottenham, as you touched on there briefly as well, is that we don't know what the formation they're going to play. So they've gone 3-4, 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1, whatever it is. The players are confused, obviously. When you look at the likes of West Ham and Forest, we know exactly how they're going to play. They have a defined structure and a defined game plan, and it's normally 4-2-3-1 for both those teams. So the players are comfortable in that formation and that system. Tottenham players don't know where they're coming or going at the moment, and they've got a big issue, obviously, that the goalkeeper is just a complete mess. Absolute Vicario, you briefly touched on it last week. He's a complete mess. I don't think they'll drop him, but they should drop him because he's just causing so many issues himself and the confidence of the defenders in front of him.
It comes a time
they play away at Liverpool.
But just quickly on Kinski, right? You got a keeper, young keeper you rate. He came in, did really good things when he came in initially. Obviously hasn't had a chance because Vicario, obviously he was injured for a while. And Vicario is obviously the senior statesman, so he gets to play all the time, right? Can Kinski be doing any worse? If I'm Tudor and I'm looking to get a noticeable reaction out of the players, one of the things I would look to do would be to change Kinski and Vicario, right? Because if nothing else, it sends a message to the players that A, you're droppable if you're not performing, and we're not just going to rest on our laurels and drift into the Championship at some point. We want to make changes, things need to change, and there's no better place to start than by dropping Vicario.
And you can look at what Newcastle have done with Pope and Ramsdale and what Chelsea have done as well. I know Sanchez played in on Saturday night, but I'd imagine Jorgensen's back this week. Yeah, Tottenham have got... they play Liverpool away on Sunday, then they obviously are at home to Atletico Madrid next Wednesday, and then they're at home to Forest a week on Sunday. A massive 4 games for Tottenham. Obviously, the Champions League, it is a big game, but let's be honest, they ain't winning the Champions League. So... they're 2 big games. Well, their big game, obviously, is against Forest at home on the 22nd. That's just...
Yeah, but they don't want to go. They don't want to go into that game on the back of 8 successive losses. I don't care how good you are. If you lose 8 games in a row, good luck. We have Leverkusen, Arsenal on Wednesday, early kickoff. I expect Arsenal to be far too strong for Leverkusen, particularly over the 2 legs. Arsenal aren't even playing great, but I just think German football's far bigger mess than I think people realise.
Yeah. In fact, nothing more to say really about Arsenal, so we've talked about
I think the other 2 games on Wednesday are interesting. Paris Saint-Germain, Chelsea. Paris Saint-Germain have been struggling. You touched on earlier, lost to Monaco. Struggled through against Monaco in the knockout stages, not quite firing. Chelsea, bit hit and miss at the moment, but they showed against Villa that they can turn up. They've got so many talented players there that I think Chelsea will think they've got a really good chance of taking Paris Saint-Germain out.
I would not be having any sort of money, I know we're not betting as well on this podcast as per se, even money for, well, just under even money. It's 10-11 for the match odds on Wednesday night, Paris Saint-Germain. No thank you. Absolutely no thank you. And looking at the to qualify market, they're 8-10 Paris Saint-Germain. No thank you.
And then we have Real Madrid, Man City. Another really... it's a shame those 2 games are on at the same time, really. But Yeah, I mean, who knows which? I mean, City obviously rested most of their players at the weekend. I just think the European teams generally are just levels below the Premier League at the moment.
No Mbappe, I'd imagine, for Real Madrid. Obviously, we're doing this on Monday, and this is Wednesday night.
I thought
The
he was
fun
out for a
game,
while.
actually.
I thought
Yeah,
Mbappe's out for a while.
the fun game, sorry, Luke, is the Bodo Glimt Sporting Lisbon. Same time Wednesday night. Because that story, Bodo Glimt, is brilliant. Can they continue their last four results? Obviously, their season hasn't even started yet. I think it starts in the next week or so, yeah. So, I mean, Sporting Lisbon obviously going up to Bodo Glimt, up to the Arctic Circle. So, yeah, it's some good games. Let's be honest, it is the business end of the season. So, yeah.
And then we have some Europa League games on Thursday night. You have Lille Villa. Tricky game for Villa, given the lack of confidence at the moment with the players missing. Lille are one of the best teams left in the competition, so Villa actually got a really poor draw. I think it could be could be a very tricky night for Villa. And then Forest play Midtjylland, who they actually lost to in the group stages as well. I guess there's one problem with the group stages, with having the extra two fixtures and playing just random teams per se, is that you end up quite a few times today. We've already said, they've already played each other in the group stages.
Yeah, it needs looking at, and because you highlighted the point lots of times that because English sides can't play each other, or countries can't play countries in the group stages, you're going to end up like this, unfortunately, yeah.
And then you've also got Palace against AEK Larnaca, who they've played against as well. So in the Conference League on Thursday night. So
Larnaca beat them, didn't they, in the group stages?
Yep. Palace have had some shocking results in that Conference League. So that will be interesting to see. So let's go quickly on to... We had quite an interesting question from a viewer. So Rob Rowland, 1973... He asked, what's the best individual sporting performance you've seen live, and what was the most memorable sporting event you've been to? Here's a Bale versus Inter at the San Siro, an England-New Zealand Cricket World Cup final at Lord's. James, talk me through yours.
The best individual performance is Stephen Gerrard, lucky enough to be 2006 FA Cup final against West Ham, the Gerrard final. If you haven't seen it or heard about it, Liverpool were essentially poor. West Ham went ahead, 2-0 ahead, then Gerrard turned up. And not only scores a screamer to make it 2-1, in the last minute of the game of injury time, he scores from 35 yards out. The ball doesn't even really rotate, it's just hit like an absolute tracer bullet into the corner, beats Shaka Hislop in goal. The Gerrard final. Liverpool went on to win on penalties. Yeah, the Gerrard final. And the most memorable one is I was lucky enough to be in the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG, 2006 Boxing Day Test match, Australia versus England, when Shane Warne bowled Andrew Strauss for his 700th Test wicket.
It's a pretty good one, that one, James. So I think it's sporting in terms of achievement that I just remember it being unbelievable. I was a huge Tiger fan at the time. Was seeing him in Doral in 2005, the Ford Championship. It was essentially him against Mickelson. Mickelson had a 2-shot lead going into that final round, and Tiger shot 66, Phil shot 69. Tiger buried a long putt on 17 for birdie, and then Tiger had to hole like a 6-foot putt on 18. It was just, essentially you had the two best golfers of their generation sort of head to head. It was pretty epic. And then most memorable one is one from childhood, which was being there as a young Aston Villa fan. So it'd been there watching us get relegated in 87, 88, and being there when we beat Everton 6-2 And back in those days, you only had one game on TV a week. It was one of the TV games. I remember Gordon Cowans scored early on for Villa. Villa went in, only got a couple. David Platt scored twice. And I just remember Villa went 6-0 up before Everton scored a couple late on. But this was an Everton team who... This was a serious Everton team. They had the likes of Neville Southall, Keown, Nevin, Sheedy, Whiteside, Tony Cottee, Graham Sharp. They had all these sort of players. It was these are days when Everton were good. And as a young kid, it was just unbelievable. The atmosphere was incredible. It was it was amazing.
Fun times. One player you mentioned there, David Platt, was so underappreciated how good he actually was. He was a fantastic footballer, he really was. Obviously, went to Italy and succeeded playing in Italy with Sampdoria and Bari, I believe. But yeah.
Well, I remember when he first joined Villa, because he only cost a couple of $100,000 from Crewe, and he settled in so quickly, and he was so good. And at the time, I was lucky enough to have a season ticket, and you'd watch him every week, and he was brilliant. And it was just such a shame that just didn't really get enough of him. And he obviously, after that Belgium quarter final where he scored that unbelievable goal, it was a bit of a surprise in many respects. And when he went to Bari for, I think, $5.5 million, and I think what it demonstrated then was the difference between the Serie A and the Premier League. So everyone now talks about, the Premier League has all the money. Well, back then, Serie A was able to steal one of the best players in England. Not for peanuts, it was a British transfer record at the time. But, the Italian teams, and Bari weren't one of the top teams and were able to take one of the best English players.
It is what it was. It's a Premier League now. They had all the best players, didn't they? And they were all the money. Two things. I spoke to my mate on Saturday regarding when I was at Sutton. I asked him the same question as well. And two things for him was Theo Walcott's hat-trick in Croatia for England. And they won 4-1. And he was lucky enough to be on the first ever live 9-darter from Raymond van Barneveld, live on Sky at the World Championships. He just said the whole place was shaking. He said it was absolutely... Now it's kind of like the norm kind of thing. Not the norm, but you know what I mean, it's a lot more. But the first one ever, and he just said the whole place just went absolutely bananas. The place was shaking, he said, yeah. So I do like those kind of questions and just trying to rack your brains of where you've been. And lucky enough, I think we've both been to a lot of sporting events. Not recently, obviously, with families and things like this, but yeah, it was always a good question.
So I think we're always willing to answer any of these types of questions, and it is fun thinking back to it. And I think the big thing really is just the impact it has on you. So like that Villa-Everton game, as a youngster, it's this type of... It's when you are young that it has more of an impact on you. A bit more lasting, memory.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, let's call it a day there, James. We'll do another sports podcast later this evening. And, we'll catch up then.
Yeah, cheers all. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.